Sajin Komamura is one of the most honorable and loyal shinigami within all of Bleach, and therefore it is tragic that his entire character arc culminates into this self-destructive urge for revenge. By the end of the Bleach manga, Komamura is transformed permanently into a wolf, all because he had failed to heed the same warnings that he had given to his friend Kaname Tozen. Due to the rushed ending of the manga, we never really get to see what happens to Komamura following the conclusion of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. The last panel that we see of him is in chapter 612, where Urahara urgently requests all captains and lieutenants to assemble in order to ram their way into the royal palace. Now, through some exposition that's given by Shinji, it is revealed that Squad 7 decided to act independently due to the injuries that were sustained by Komamura. The entire division refused to have a medical unit dispatched to them, and the last panel where we see Iba and Komamura together shows them getting ready to face off against multiple Sternritters. In this video, I want to completely break down and analyze the fate of Sajin Komamura. Now be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be analyzing some important information from the We Do Not Always Love You light novel, which reveals some important information about Komamura's character following the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. So without further delay, let's dive into the topic of the video. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at getsuga.com. The light novel We Do Not Always Love You is incredible because not only does it reveal to us the marriage of Rukia and Renji, it also expands upon the stories of some of the captains and lieutenants who we didn't really get to see much of during the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. While the novel is centered around the big wedding, we do get a few chapters that show how life has evolved for Komamura, Isane, and Nanao, just to name a few of the characters involved here. This light novel is actually set 2.5 years after Can't Be Your Own World, and it's 7 years before chapter 685. I do have an entire video on my channel where I break down most of We Do Not Always Love You and the wedding of Rukia and Renji, so definitely go and check out that video. Now in chapter 539, Komamura goes back to visit his clan elder, as Komamura asks him to teach him the secrets of the Wolfman clan. This happens right after the first invasion of the Quincy, with the death of head Captain Yamamoto still very fresh and most of the Shinigami forces being completely wiped out by the Quincy attack. Komamura thinks that this is the only way forward for him to gain the upper hand in battle. However, the clan elder laughs in Komamura's face and he scolds him for trying to claim his heritage after hiding his true identity as a wolfman for all of those years. Komamura responds by saying that the world has started to change in the past few decades. He believes that a world where the Wolfman clan no longer need to hide within the shadows is just around the corner. Now this statement reveals to us the impact that Komamura has had within the Soul Society. Later, I'm going to talk about how the We Do Not Always Love You light novel reveals how other members of Komamura's clan ended up being inspired to walk in the same path that he had laid down as a Shinigami. Komamura's battle against Bambietta takes place between chapters 554 to 558. Komamura manages to defeat Sternritter E the Explode after he utilizes the humanization technique, but this comes at a heavy cost as Komamura is then transformed into an actual wolf. In order to even utilize this ability, a member of the Wolfman clan needs to give up their heart. After being transformed into a mindless wolf, Komamura was fortunate enough to have survived the remainder of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and I'm guessing that this is thanks to Squad 7 and Iba. We learn that Komamura lived out the rest of his days hidden in the hills behind the training fields of the Squad 7 barracks. The Squad 7 lieutenant at the time, Iba, reported to everyone within the Gotei 13 that Komamura went missing in action. It becomes obvious that this isn't the truth, however, as the existing captains and lieutenants are still able to feel his reiatsu. Although the spiritual pressure has sunk to a fraction of what it used to be, the members of the Gotei 13 decided to treat Komamura as if he were killed in action. We learn that Komamura is somewhat still able to communicate with Iba. During one such occasion in the middle of the night within the Squad 7 barracks, Komamura calls out to Iba, and fascinatingly, the story characterizes Komamura through his interactions communications with his lieutenant. When Komamura leads him to a hidden spot within the hills, we quickly realize that even as an actual wolf, Komamura is still able to retain his memories and to some degree his level of intelligence. The fact that Iba is able to interpret his barking on some level indicates this too. Once Iba arrives at the spot that Komamura brings him to, he looks into a hole and finds two young wolfman children emerging from the hole. Now this is fascinating because the wolfman children appear to be wearing clothes which are similar to rags, but despite this, their fur is still slightly dirty. These two children are revealed to be the nephews of Komamura. Despite somewhat being isolated from society, the two children instantly recognize Iba as they loudly proclaim about how happy they are that Komamura was able to bring Iba here. It is apparent that there's a deep bond between Komamura and his nephews as they warmly embrace him and translate everything that Komamura is saying, since they're able to understand his speech. We Do Not Always Love You does an incredible job of characterizing Komamura as a well-loved character, as even the youngest members of his clan instantly place their trust in him upon meeting him after such a long time. It's apparent that even after Komamura had cut ties with his clan after joining the Soul Society, his absence was still felt amongst them. During the early portions of the Bleach manga, we see Komamura wear a bucket over his head, highlighting that he is somewhat ashamed of his appearance. This is partly the reason why the Wolfman clan have isolated themselves from society. After Komamura's true appearance is revealed, everybody seems to accept him for the way that he is. And this is what Komamura had meant when he had spoken to the elder of his clan, stating that a world where they can live among society is just around the corner. Now strangely, Komamura's nephews don't appear to have any issue with Komamura being an actual wolf. I'm presuming that they must have been there when he had utilized the humanization technique. The two wolf children introduce themselves as Urui and Shoma. Interestingly enough, the two children point out that they want to become shinigami due to being inspired by a Serite communication that they had read many years ago, which featured Squad 7 within it. The We Do Not Always Love You light novels makes a massive deal out of Hisagi's role as a journalist for the Serite communication, and it's great to see that his work is getting some respect and recognition from Komamura's nephews. This light novel does a great job of also revealing to us some slice of life moments, as we get to see how the members of the Gote 13 are kind of treated as celebrities who are revered by normal citizens of Rukongai. Now the Wolfman children talk about their journey, stating that the Wolfman clan are characterized as individuals who literally and figuratively reside on the edge of society. This entire exposition is delivered through Urui, who states that because the Wolfman clan primarily live inside a den, they know very little about the outside world. It is shocking to learn that even the adults of the clan know next to nothing about what is going on. The fact that the two brothers had to sneak out of their den at night, that the clan elder is still not okay with members leaving and joining the Serite. The Wolfman clan live on top of a large mineral deposit where various gems are mined and extracted for business purposes. They took the opportunity to sneak out because once a month, one of the adults takes the gems to a nearby town in order to exchange them for clothes and other supplies. Again, their entire isolated lifestyle is hinted at here, as the members of the Wolfman clan do not participate in the economy of the Soul Society. They are literally trading valuable gems for the most basic of necessities when you think about it. The two brothers would meet up and regularly speak to the adult who would bring the clan all of their basic necessities, and through this they would hear about the outside world and the stories of the Gote 13. They learnt about the invasion of Yuhobak and his army, as well as the fact that many shinigami had died. It was also widely circulated that Komamura had died in battle. However, the Wolf brothers maintained their faith that he was too strong to go down so easily. To his nephews, Komamura represents everything that they aspire to be, and in no way are they ashamed of him for leaving their clan and joining the Gote 13. They had both decided that if Komamura was in fact dead, then they would take up positions within the Gote 13 as shinigami in order to replace him. Urui states that their mother scolded them for even having such aspirations, but their father had taken more of a lenient approach, even going as far as to help them to leave the clan. In order to find their way into the Serite, the two brothers had thought that they should meet Iba. They asked the man who transported them about the location of the 7th Division barracks, and in order not to be discovered by anyone, they had decided to travel at night by passing through mountainous terrain and forests. On the night of the 3rd day, in the middle of the forest, they detected the scent of a fellow wolf. Once they had met with Komamura, he had informed them that Iba would be the best person to assist them. Of course, this ends up shocking Iba because he realizes that they can actually understand what Komamura is saying. When Shoma offers to be a translator, Komamura is able to pass on a few messages. He states that Iba should stop calling him captain since he is now the actual captain of Squad 7. He also states that Iba is well suited for parenting. The tone of this conversation, which can be best described as playful, implies that Komamura is satisfied with his life now as a wolf, and he does not hold any resentment as to how his life ended up playing out. In fact, if anything, he is happy for Iba's presence and how his former lieutenant can now step up to fill his shoes. Before too long, Iba announces his decision to take responsibility for Komamura's nephews. It's a very heartwarming moment as the two of them embrace him. This was the first time in a long while that Iba had actually smiled. Following the events of the Quincy invasion, Iba had decided to start training non-stop to the point that he needed to be healed at the end of every day from the wounds that he would sustain during his training. Even Komamura politely suggests for him to take a break. As the Wolfman children sleep, Iba had been busy making clothes for them. He had even sewed holes for their tails to pass through as he hands over their new clothing to the two of them. Clothing is a very important motif within this story. Komamura's nephews were wearing tattered, filthy rags when they had first appeared, but by the end of the light novel, they are putting on hakamas which were handmade by none other than a captain of the Gote 13. It symbolically shows how the Wolfman clan actually is accepted within this new world, and it's honestly an excellent testament to the life that Komamura had lived, and the path that he had paved for the members of his clan. Komamura envisioned a world ultimately where the members of his clan would no longer need to be repressed or ashamed of who they are. Komamura's nephews ultimately continue the legacy of Komamura. They cement a new beginning for the younger generation of the Wolfman clan. The other members of the Gote 13 in a light-hearted way perceive them as cute and fluffy, and it reveals that there is no discrimination against them. In fact, Rukia wishes that they would join the 13th division, and this signifies that they have already been successfully integrated into the Gote 13. Komamura, who was once an outsider, had soon become a well-loved and respected captain who had given absolutely everything that he had for the sake of the Soul Society and for its leader Genryusai Yamamoto, who had given Komamura a chance by accepting him into the Gote 13 and not discriminating against him. The theme of revenge is heavily tied to characters like Komamura and Tozen. Komamura being transformed into an actual wolf is symbolic of how revenge strips an individual of their humanity. In question 593, which Kubo had answered on his fan club outside on the 11th of March, he was asked about Komamura's humanization technique, with the fan wondering if Komamura had turned into a wolf after the battle because the technique's time limit had expired, or whether if it was because Komamura himself was consumed by a desire for revenge. The fan had also inquired about whether or not if Komamura would have still turned into a wolf if he had used the humanization technique for a good intention like protecting the Soul Society instead of using it for revenge. Kubo states that the fan is pretty much correct in their assumptions. He states that the humanization technique is an ability that allows Komamura to maintain a human form while withstanding the curse of the elder of the Wolfman clan. The very moment that the humanization technique is used for a selfish desire, the curse is forcibly fulfilled, and it is then that the Wolfman clan member is transformed into a beast. Kubo does an amazing job of elaborating more upon this mysterious transformation as we learn that Komamura did in fact give in to his selfish desires, and it plays incredibly into his character arc as it's contradictory to what he had told Tozen within the fake Karakura Town arc. Komamura fell prey to the very same emotions that he had tried to drive out of Tozen. Bleach is a very strong proponent of this idea that revenge is bad, and it's honestly hard to argue with that when you see the fates of both Komamura and Tozen. Komamura had forsaken his own humanity for the sake of revenge, while on the other hand Tozen had abandoned and thrown away everybody who had placed their trust in him for the sake of gaining more power and for his desire for revenge against the Soul Society, who he believes had committed an injustice for being lenient on Tokinada, who killed Tozen's close friend Kakyo. I've made some excellent videos breaking down the characters of Komamura and Tozen, so if you want to know more about these very underrated Bleach characters, then I highly recommend that you check out my character analysis on each of them. They are honestly some of the most emotional and gut-wrenching videos that I've made on this channel. So we've now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the We Do Not Always Love You light novel reintroducing us to Komamura's character as well as introducing us to his nephews? Do you like how the light novel builds upon the finale of the 1000-Year Blood War arc? And what are your thoughts about Komamura Komamura's nephews being involved within the Hell arc of the Bleach manga. Hopefully this video has helped you to better understand Komamura's character and the life that he lives following the Quincy invasion, and if there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about the fate of Komamura, then definitely let me know by leaving a comment under this video. And lastly, thank you for making it to the very end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.